Very good afternoon to all of you. Thanks a lot to GS1 for the fantastic presentation. That is really what we want from this kind of event, to have practical aspects, to learn from new technologies and looking a bit to the future. Before introducing the panel, I would just like to sensitize us that in comparison to the previous panel, the circularity topic in Bangladesh involves a little bit of a different approach. And I do think that both on the global level, where we also will hear things from, but especially in the domestic level, we're using the term very easily. There is no circularity, right? We're all working towards it. We're all trying to find a path towards a more circular economy. But the global data shows that circularity in products is decreasing. I know that there is a lot of dynamics. I know that there is a lot of possibilities. But the way towards the hope that Rizwana gave us for this day, and the way towards the wealth that includes the headline of this panel, is a long one and is a turbulent one. And some of the stakeholders that have to play a role in this space in Bangladesh are not here on the panel. I'm referring to the sorters, I'm referring to the middlemen, I'm referring to the people that bring what we heard in the panel before, the jute, not the jute, the jute, the textile scraps, to the recyclers, or that export them to India, to Europe, to other places. So if I may just very briefly try to summarize, and I anticipate any mistakes from my side to be generously taken by you, what we are talking when we talk circularity in Bangladesh. Maybe we can divide the general topic in three different aspects. The first aim is to reduce primary raw materials and the direct and indirect GHG emissions. Many of us work in that space: renewable energies, energy efficiency, water resources, etc., etc. That is one space. The second space is the jute space, so the post-industrial waste. What do we do with the textile scraps? Where do they end? How do we recycle them properly? The third space is the EPR. So what happens post-consumer? There is a big hope towards wealth that more regulation from different countries will intensify the pressure towards the system so that we can find real, robust, and general solutions. But in Bangladesh, we're mainly talking about the second space, the textile scraps and how they can be recycled. We also heard in the panel before that the narrative about using recycle to 20% or whatever in a product is maybe a challenge, because we create an artificial system that may not contribute 100% to what we aim for, which is a circularity path. It's a little bit like this famous example of the village council that says, too many snakes in my village. Every snake that I get, I will pay 50 whatever. And then one smart guy breeds snakes and sells the snakes to the village councillor. And then the policy is absolved. At the end, there are more snakes in the village than before. We need to have an eye whether that is happening and how to tackle that. Now, this jute space, this second lever of circularity of post-industrial waste, how is it implemented in Bangladesh? There are these composite factories, the big ones that have their own recycling mills. They can use some of the jute for their own mills. They might need to sell some of their scraps, and they might even have to buy from outside, again, sorters, recyclers, this informal space or formal, but not really tangible space that we are missing here. Then there is a second layer of those, maybe 5 to 8% in some factories, as we also heard before, where white and black cotton, 100% cotton, is being channeled to specific recyclers. And then everything else. And this everything else is so big that I think we can explore fantastic alternatives, and they will all still fit in, because the amount of textile scraps in Bangladesh is huge. I want to close this extensive introduction by remembering that last Sunday at 3 p.m. in Ashulia, a young man, Kaptan Mia, was killed. A 16-year-old guy who was involved in the jute handling business, and he came into a fight between one faction from a BNP local councillor and another faction from the Chatradar League that wanted to get the governance, the ruling over the jute from one of the factories from the Pretty group. A young man that last week was alive is now dead because of all the circumstances that surround this jute industry in Bangladesh. We should be brave enough to address these topics. We should be brave enough to connect them with the potentials for the future, and we should be brave enough to include into the conversation as many stakeholders as possible. Thanks a lot for these 5 minutes additionally. But since Sai Tanvir from Pacific Jeans is not here, I think it was not a waste of time. Having a vast experience already in Bangladesh, I would like to introduce Thijs Woostra, who is not only the Deputy Head of Mission of the Embassy of the Royal Kingdom of the Netherlands in Bangladesh, but also a co-host of this event. So thanks a lot for inviting all of us and for being here for this day. Could you maybe describe from your perspective how the Kingdom of Netherlands is supporting this circularity space in Bangladesh and the aims and objectives that you connect with the trade mission that is currently ongoing?
I do have my own. Does it work? Yeah, I guess so. Good morning to you all. My name is Thijs Woostra, Deputy Head of Mission of the Netherlands Embassy, dealing with trade and development. Being here in Bangladesh for 2 years, I see a vibrant economy, but I also see, and that's what I want to say first, as on this day, International Day of Women in Science, that at least the industry is still male-dominated. And luckily we have our trade mission in, and where we see more than half of our mission is female and dealing with sustainability. So maybe there might be also some solution to the circularity and sustainability problem in equaling the male-female balance. And especially on this stage also, I guess you are the second or the third woman on stage so far. So I hope next year we also have equal gender balance at this stage. Having said that, Michael, you alluded to the jute sector. And indeed, we would like to first say that in Bangladesh, there is no waste. People are reusing the waste and making their own livelihoods and making their own economy from. And that results in an informal jute sector, semi-informal, in the second stage of reusability. And that also leads that we need to address this sector before going to rules and regulations. And it also means that you need a strong government intervention, and you also need a strong sector intervention in order to upgrade the informal sector, make it formal, and also increase the better the working conditions of the people in the youth industry, because in the beginning of the seminar we heard decent work is at the core of our agenda, and we shouldn't close our eyes on the situation that is part of our sustainability actually working in an informal sector. The Netherlands, we have been a long-standing partner to Bangladesh. Oh, I forgot my paper, sorry. I got a good preparation from my colleague Ashim. So we are here in a circular apparel industry. And of course the Netherlands recognize the enormous potential of Bangladesh, and also we recognize the potential that Bangladesh has, the challenge that Bangladesh has taken upon itself after Rana Plaza to open itself, to be open to criticism, to be open to dialogue, and to open the factories for outside viewers to see their processes and also engage in discussions on circularity. And Bangladesh has come a long way being leader in the certified green factories worldwide, and we like to compliment on that. At this moment, Bangladesh creates 400,000 tons of pre-consumer waste. And indeed, that waste is now being collected in an informal sector. So where can we as the Dutch help Bangladesh or support Bangladesh in overcoming that challenge? And definitely there are technological solutions, but it's also in creating a good policy surrounding the jute sector, surrounding the informal sector, and there I guess the Netherlands is now embarking upon. We are co-creating solutions with government, and especially at this moment we are talking with the Bangladeshi government in how we can create also a favorable environment for circularity and sustainability. The Netherlands is one of the world leaders in sustainability and circularity, and we have committed ourselves to be fully circular in 2050 and 50% circular in 2030, and we're getting to that. It's cutting edge technology, it's conducive policies, and it's also conducive engagement with industry and other stakeholders. We can support Bangladesh in the reverse supply chains to see how we can do this the technology and use our expertise to upgrade that technology. And we work together with Bangladesh in our PACT project to create more sustainable garment industry. Because by transforming textile waste into more valuable resources, Bangladesh can also gain and create more opportunities and become a world market leader at that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Thijs. For this first round, please allow me to introduce Koen Warmadan, who is the Chief Commercial Officer of Aware. Welcome to Bangladesh. And if you could, in this first round, introduce what you want to present and how your connection to Bangladesh has grown or developed.
Of course, again. So my name is Koen. I'm a co-founder at Aware, a traceability platform to prove your compliance. So in the end, we empower product producers like you today with the traceability data their customers are looking for. And we do that in a fiber-forward approach, meaning that we really start at the raw material base and live tracking material and compliance data in every step of the supply chain. In the end, we ensure that you can prove the claims that you make towards your customers within one click on a button. And I'm traveling now for 4 years to Bangladesh, and I see a positive change the last few years. We are happy to be here with one of our first partners, using our technology with Cyclo, tracing his yarns physically, because we can add a physical tracer at source that can be scanned and authenticated in every step of the supply chain, but also digitally through our platform. So every supplier in the supply chain adds information, and finally the product producer is connecting the data with the physical product, and automatically it generates digital product passports and traceability reports that you can use towards your customers.
Thank you very much. That is originated from before the discussions around digital product passports, etc., from your own anticipation of the need of the market, or could you maybe describe the story how you founded this?
Absolutely. So I'm in the textile business for 15 years. I founded my first sustainable fashion brand more than 10 years ago, mainly focusing in production in Europe, Portugal, Italy, Turkey. And I met my partner, Feiko van der Veen, 6 years ago. He was the founder of a trading company producing fashion accessories for all the big brands and retailers. Both have traveled the world, seeing supply chains in every stage of the supply chain, and saw how challenging it is to validate material claims on the final product, because we could not prove that this sweater is really made from recycled content. It is not possible, and I think how the system is organized nowadays, it's failing. We all know that with the traditional transaction certificates, that a lot of cheating is going on. I think intentionally, but also unintentionally, because we have so many players in the supply chain. So we do it in a different way. by storing data on the blockchain and making it fully transparent, not only to the next processor in the supply chain, but to all stakeholders in the supply chain. So our narrative is really being created on full transparency, bringing real data and trusted data to the supply chain. Can you still cheat the system? Yes, you can. Even if the physical tracer is applied by Musti and his team, still people can cheat. But by training them and telling them that the data will be visible to all stakeholders in the supply chain, we think we can reduce the risk to the bare minimum.
Thank you so much. And we also welcome Tara Skelly, CSR specialist from Zeeman. Thank you very much for being here. One of the elements, and I maybe exaggerated a little bit for the sake of the contribution to our discussion, one of the elements that keeps this sector a little bit informal is also that the purchasing practices between brands and suppliers include a certain gray area around what happens with the raw materials or the textiles that are not being used for the final product, and the excesses are being, it's comfortable for some stakeholders that it's an informal space, so they can also sell certain excess materials to outside players without having to document that. How do you feel from a brand's perspective that this space is developing, and where do you see the hope or the future wealth that we are all aiming for?
Yes, we at Zeeman, maybe to introduce ourselves a little bit, I don't know how much the audience knows about us. Zeeman is a Dutch company, but we are active within Europe. We have over 1,300 stores. And our goal is to create our products, our textiles, as sustainable as possible, affording consumers an affordable price. Now, this is a challenge if you want to be as sustainable as possible. So we are looking into different ways to do this, trying to see what different techniques are out there. One of them is the post-industry waste or pre-consumer waste, as we call it. Then we have the post-consumer waste, repurposing and reuse, so secondhand. So mostly now your question refers to the first category. We do try to, in two ways, incorporate circularity in our products, and we have tried to close the loop, so to say, in our own production wastes. But there are some challenges in that, so you need the volume. I think previous speakers have already explained a bit about you need to sort the different colors and materials. So there we have a challenge. Also the composition of the materials can be a challenge to reuse it again. Then the quality, and in the end, for us, both the quality and then the pricing that comes along with this. So we still need to be able to create a product that will sell for our consumer market, because we cannot price ourselves out of the market. But it is definitely something we are looking into and seeing how we can incorporate it more and more in our stores.
Thank you so much. And maybe a follow-up question. Do you also have plans or ideas, or already implementing ways to incorporate the consumer in that conversation? So to not only present the product, but incorporate somehow the consumer into supporting a higher cost or a higher price for certain products that could then subsidize or finance the more costly circularity approaches?
Interesting question. I think we are involving the consumer in a way that we inform them as much as possible on sustainability aspects, but as circularity is one of the things that we work on, so we are also working on the labor conditions, which is not a topic of today, but also our CO2 ambitions that we have. So there's actually a lot of different factors that go into the pricing. So I don't think we could say one-on-one, this is something that we can communicate and price for the consumer, but it's a total package of sustainability.
Thank you so much. And then the fourth panelist, Mr. Mustafa Mounir, President of Cyclo-Simco. Thank you so much for being here. You were also here last year at the Sustainable Apparel Forum and described a little bit that the technology that mechanical recycling is using is basically similar over the last couple of decades, that now simply the new dress of circularity is coming, and one of the effects for someone that is in the business for a long time is that the prices are going down and that the business around it becomes a bit more challenging. Could you maybe from the closest of all of our perspectives here on the panel describe a little bit where are we now and where do you think we should head for in the next couple of years?
Thank you. Yeah, so like you said, we've been doing this for almost 15 years now, me personally for the past 10. So obviously there's been a lot of progress there, and on the positive side, you know, I encourage more people to adopt circular practices and invest in technologies. So from where we were last year, a lot more capacity is being built in Bangladesh to recycle more. Pacific was supposed to be here, but so there's more options in Bangladesh. The challenge that imposes is the pool of good quality waste still remains fixed. Even though the garment sector is growing, it's not necessarily that we're making more white, black t-shirts every day. For the good part, we're expanding categories in Bangladesh, the product offerings and things like that. But that introduces a lot of different types of waste to the market that is not necessarily recyclable right now. So the pool has remained fixed. The amount of bidders for that pool has increased, along with persistence from India, from Pakistan, from China. So the cost of that waste has gone up quite a bit. I might have addressed this a little bit last year, but it's again a face. And then if you look at the latest reports, the prices of yarn is going down, and more business is coming from imports, especially from India. So there's a real big downward pressure on price for the items, but the costs are still going up. Power is still a big issue. So yeah, so it's a very competitive space right now, and again, it's a big battle over a fixed pool of the good waste. The other things that you can say that with in a growth perspective, again, now introducing more value additions in terms of traceability, like we've been closely working with Aware for the past few years. The adoption of digital product passport traceability is more accessible because of that partnership, and it helps solidify and create relationships with customers that are more communicative, so that you have more nominations and things like that in place. So there are positive elements happening in terms of capacity building, availability, but the negatives are still persistent. And one aspect, again, obviously about the amount of usable or good waste is there. What we've been trying to do at Cyclo is trying to figure out, okay, now the waste that is, let's say, B quality or not that, how do we use that in a manner that gives value addition to it, so that you diversify the amount of inputs that we can take. It's starting small, but hopefully we can increase that as we hone in. But mostly it's about trying to find applications for it in terms in the textile and garment space. So there's a lot of innovation around working with different fabric mills and sweater manufacturers and knitters on how to work with that. But it takes a lot of push from the consumer side, the retailer, the buyer side to get that through.
Thank you. The Export Promotion Bureau of Bangladesh estimates around 120 million or so worth of exports, US dollars, per year. Let's say recyclable textile waste. In reality, it's probably 500 or 600 million because of the coding and the customs not measuring it correctly. That's at least what BTGWPEA describes. And there is a huge market, of course, for downcycling and use the materials for other elements. So as we heard also from Thijs, that huge space is there, and it's a bit different from the shiny world of fashion industry and startups and everything that maybe a customer in Europe or in the US would relate to this topic. Maybe two questions to you, Mustafin. One is, would you say that there is enough space for all of this in Bangladesh, considering the amount of textile waste? And secondly, if you could suggest to the government any first approach, where would that be? Would that be more in the jute space, or would that be more in the VAT and tax-related space? Where would you see that?
Yeah, so that's an economic question, so there's going to be a long answer to that. But is there space for it in Bangladesh? Yes. Are the financial resources available? Not quite. Are the infrastructure resources available in terms of energy, water? Not quite. Are the government-related tax, VAT incentives in place? No. They can actually be restrictive in that sense. The other aspect of it is, how do we market and how do we communicate those aspects of kind of diversifying the use case, even if it is with downcycling, quote unquote, or horizontal cycling. All those things need to be addressed. It'll be addressed step by step. So is the opportunity there? Yes. The time frame is really where the concern is, because as he said, 2030 is, in my mind, I'm already planning for 2030. It's basically here. 2050, okay, there's some time to go, but a lot of infrastructure things have to fall in place in order for that to happen. There are some things we can do rather quickly in terms of setting up VAT incentives, tax breaks to help be more competitive in this space, as opposed to exporting waste to India, to Europe, other places like that, where it is being used, and these guys are getting incentives based on exporting just because they're exporting it. But somebody like me, I get no incentives, even though I'm doing indirect exports. So like the waste that I'm collecting, recycling, making into yarn, that's going into millions of pieces of garments every year, and then the FOB value of that is more than obviously the yarn cost. So that is in the 50, hundreds of millions being exported just from the waste that we've collected and made into products from Cyclo. So again, the opportunity is there. We have to have room for growth also in use cases for the downcycling, whether that be the non-wovens or the insulation materials, things like that. That still has to be recognized in order for that to expand. Plus the financial incentives have to be there, because if it's not profitable, then it's not going to make sense. So carving out profit in this industry is very difficult. Not to say it's not been done, we're doing it. But to have that profit in a very narrow realm that can sustain for so long, but it cannot scale as quickly as a linear type of model. I hope that kind of addresses some of the points.
Yeah, great, thank you. Maybe for the second round, of course, you can say whatever you think you want to say to the audience. But one thing that would be interesting for me, but I don't know if we have an answer there, is all these new technologies that are, let's say, innovative by themselves, the Spinnovas, RenewCell 2.0, or Soldra, or the different approaches. Would you see the perspective of them coming here, or do we have to strengthen the shipment of products to the places where these technologies are being developed? Again, that's just a frame question. You can feel free to say whatever you want, and I would like to start with Tara. Whatever you think this audience might be interested in from your work.
What do you mean?
You can say whatever you want, or
or answer
you
that
can-
question.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, your question is quite technical, so that from that sense, I'm not. I will leave that to other speakers. I think from our perspective as a company, what is really important, we would like to discover all of these different techniques that are out there, and the industry is rapidly changing. So for us, it's really interesting, and we would like to invest in that more, but we need to create an industry where we make that possible and profitable. Because at the moment, it's crazy to me that buying something from raw materials created new, it's cheaper than to invest in recycling or repairing. So this kind of industry, we need to create an industry where there's a fair competition to invest in these kind of techniques. Otherwise, the process we are still exploring this. We will continue with that. But if we really rapidly want to increase that, we need to change and raise the bar for all the companies. So also that's a shout out for some government representatives from Europe that are here today. Yeah, for us, that's something that's really important to be able to grow this industry.
Thank you so much. Yeah, raising the bar, that could also be something, maybe Thijs, if you would want that to describe what you are maybe working with the government of Bangladesh towards policy adjustments in that space.
Thank you, Michael, for first of all for a very interesting question on a subject which I'm not too familiar with, and of course it's a technical question, but also a question, I guess, which the market can decide itself as long as we get to a sustainable and responsible garment sector. And I guess I agree that the policy directives also needs to be in place, and not only in place, but also implemented and being overlooked that they are really being used. Of course, we see possibilities for Bangladesh being a circularity hub in the region. Of course, you are the second producer of garment, and so you have the most waste, and you also have the highest technology. But indeed, it has to be affordable to use the technology, and we have to create a level playing field between for reuse of materials and not asking a new use of new materials. So I clearly support your view, and I guess that also legislation as well as incentives should be in place and also be part of the European policies and directives so far. Without having said that, I'm also at liberty to say something, and I would like to draw your attention to the textile hackathon, which we have started with the Bangladeshi University for textiles, where 5 young students are making solutions for a more sustainable garment industry. And you can vote for the winner, and this afternoon we will hand out the awards to the winners of this hackathon. And it also gives that there is space, there is knowledge in Bangladesh, there is also willingness of the industry to act, as my neighbor says here. Now it's also time for us as government officials, as policymakers, to deliver, and we are here to support Bangladesh in helping to create their policy framework that they can also take their responsibility and deliver on the sustainability of the Bangladeshi garment industry. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Mustafin, maybe Renew Cell.
Yeah, so again, I'm both practical but also an idealist in this space. So yes, the short answer, I would love to. I dream of being able to bring these or at least being a part of being able to bring these technologies to Bangladesh, because a lot of them do show promise, and you know, this is something that I dream about, sleep, eat, everything. It's part of my life. So in order to get that technology into place, we have to work on a longer time frame, because first it has to show that the product works in the countries that they're producing it right now. It's going to be more expensive over there, and it's going to be expensive for us to start this as well. We have to be willing to take that risk. I do think it's a investment or risk worth taking. You have to have a longer perspective in terms of when you're going to get a return on that investment, but a return on that investment should be there, because as of right now, consumers have shown that they're not willing to pay more. That, again, I hope changes in the generations that follow, or at least they don't want to buy more cheap stuff. They can focus a little bit on buying more or focus better things. So again, for those technologies to come here, it's been addressed before that about energy policy, in terms of taxes and duties on bringing in the technology, the skill gap, the scientific knowledge needed for all that. You know, we have the talent here. That'll be developed. There's going to be, my ideal future of it, that there's a harmony between the mechanical recyclers, the chemical recyclers, that certain things go towards mechanical recycling, the waste that's produced in mechanical recycling, some shorter fibers and things like that, hopefully that's applicable to go towards chemical recycling. So you're balancing out the cost amongst the different technologies. So some of the more expensive waste, but that's cheaper to convert into usable products, can go in certain technology, and then because you're creating waste from that, can go towards a chemical recycling. Let's say the shortest fibers that you can't spin, if that can be dissolved and made into a good fiber again, and then those things are blended back together, sent back, and we really create this kind of circular future. Of course, I have a kind of a utopic vision of this, which is not practical as of right now, but I do believe that in the future it will be. Of course, you need regulations in place and things like that, but at the end of the day, what you need is consumer engagement in these things. First, having them care and having them be able to have the trust that indeed that this is what we're claiming. To put any value on that, solutions like Aware, where you can trace everything very easily with the QR code, it helps, excuse my language, like de-bullshit a lot of the claims that we're making. That's a big barrier, a psychological barrier that needs to go over through the consumer, because they, wanted sustainability. People are offering claims of sustainability. They called bullshit on it. And so now they're like, okay, we'll just buy used clothes. But at the end of the day, we're still producing more clothes. There are warehouses full, overpacked in Europe and the US with used clothes that are not sellable. So something's going to happen with that stuff right now. If it's being burned or whatever, it's probably not the best used. But it's going to take a collective effort all the way from consumer down to us. And yeah, at the end of the day, a lot of structural changes are going to have to take place, but it's about having the willingness to do that, and having a partnership, a coalition of partnerships to help share those risks.
Thank you so much. Koen, you have 1 minute 30 left to describe maybe also how your solution might be connected also with ESG reporting or due diligence data system. Will it be only the data, or is it even a compatibility of the technology itself?
Absolutely, we offer that. I think we all talk about impact, and the last few days I was traveling again, and all the factories were presenting fantastic reporting tools, the impact that they are making. But in the end, it's all about the reliability of the data. If we cannot verify the materials that we use, or the compliances that we store on databases or internal systems, we cannot also be sure about the impact that we are making. So I think that validation process is key, whether it's for a solution like Aware or any other solution provider in the world. There need to be a kind of standard, and I think policymakers also need to play an important role in it, that we cut out the bullshit, sorry for my language, that Musti was referring to. Because I see all kind of savings and claims that are made, and it's not true. It's not based on reliable data. So let's agree with each other that claims always need to be backed up by data, and that otherwise they are not being accepted. Because otherwise we are presenting the same wrong data towards the consumer. So we can introduce solutions like digital product passports. But if we showcase the wrong data towards the consumer, we will not solve the whole greenwashing challenge that we face in the textile industry today. So I think there are a lot of challenges in that part too.
Fantastic, thank you very much, right on time. And Ashik encouraged us to propose solutions that are 6 to 9 months doable. So I would say we can go to BGME and BKMEA and request from them to train their member factories in waste segregation or waste preparation to allow for a cleaner and more sorted waste coming out of the factories. That could be a very quick measure that might have an impact for recyclers and for the sorters out there. Thanks a lot for your attention, and I'm handing back over to the organizer.